right, what's up, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of VCC Live. This is episode 6. Today we have with us, for the first time ever, a special guest, Alex Clark from CASAA, Legislative Director. And you'll see next to me, which way is he? There. Jay DeLuco is back from his expeditions to Florida. Yeah, we'll just do a quick intro, see what everyone's been up to the last week, or in your case, Jay, the last few weeks, or in your case, Alex, forever. And and we'll get the ball rolling. So for me, same stuff this week. Getting ready for PA in a few weeks, Pittsburgh, VCC PA. It's been challenging with the mentality of companies, but we're going to have a great event. We're going to have some great advocacy discussions, and we're going to get some smokers off tobacco. And that's the goal of every VCC event, whether we have 10,000 people show up, which we have never had, 7,000 the most, but or we have 100. We're gonna rock it. We're gonna make it a great event, and we're gonna make a difference. So that's what I've been up to the last week. Jay, how about yourself? What you been up to the last few weeks?
As you mentioned, I went down to Florida with a family. 1 week spent at Universal and SeaWorld, and the next week spent with my primary business partner down there, LJE Smokes. Spent a great week with Lee and Henry down there, going through their facilities, seeing where we can make improvements, that kind of thing. And then I headed back. We drove both ways with twin boys and a 10-year-old girl.
Sounds like it was fun.
That was fun. I need a vacation.
I hear Springfield is nice this time of year. You should check it out.
Springfield is nice no time of the year.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Nick, what you been up to the last week?
Oh, more of the same. Shooting videos, editing videos, shooting more videos, editing more videos. I live on YouTube. 24/7. We've been scrambling with Namber Juice for this August 8th cutoff date to get some products out. We finally finalized our European distro, which feels good. I'm very relieved. And it's business as usual, a lot of videos and all that nonsense.
Very cool. Alex, how about yourself? What you been up to? Oh, first, for those who might not know who you are,
I started vaping in 2013.
You're really going back to the beginning. So Alex is the legislative director for CASAA, which is the Consumer Advocate Smoke-Free Alternatives Association, and they're a consumer-based organization. Just for anyone who might be checking this out for the first time and not know who CASAA is, you definitely need to know who CASAA is. So visit CASAA.org. Alex works for them as a legislative director, and he's agreed on short notice to join us and discuss some of the topics that we're going to be discussing today because he's pretty in the know about most of them. So tell us where you are and what you're up to right now. You're Canada, you said?
Yeah, I'm in Canada. My wife is from here, so she's spending the summer up here taking care of her mom, and I needed to see my wife, so I've come to have an extended visit in Montreal. Which is nice, and I actually had the opportunity to walk past a vape shop in Quebec. For those that don't know, the tobacco control laws in Canada are pretty strict. Quebec actually has the strictest tobacco regulations. I'm not sure about the rest of the country, but I do know that in Quebec you can't display your product. So if you walk into the dépanneurs or the corner stores or convenience stores around here, everything is behind a plastic guard. There's no branding that you can see when you walk in. And so vape shops have recently had to adopt similar measures. And if you walk past a vape store in Quebec, you can't see through the front windows. But we saw actually kind of a creative solution to that. They just sort of painted it blue, and it's actually nice. And, they have the name of the vapor shop on there. So it's just total side note. This is something actually that New York City had contemplated a couple years ago, at least for cigarettes, and ultimately that would have applied to vapor products, I'm sure. But worth bringing up just because, potentially types of regulations we could see in the States.
So they have classified in Canada, they have classified already vapor products as tobacco products?
It varies from province to province. I can't really claim that I'm familiar with all of it. But I do know that Quebec is the most strict. Hold on, I'm going to shut this window. I think it's probably kind of loud out there.
And there was Alex Clark from CASAA, ladies and gentlemen.
He just jumped out the window.
Left through the
He couldn't
window.
take it anymore.
Well, I got this little notice from Skype. There's a lot of background noise, so I want to try to make sure to minimize the static. But yes, as far as Quebec is concerned, it's very strict up here. In fact, a lot of these apartments and other buildings have balconies and landings. It's a part of your apartment, but technically it's illegal to smoke or vape out there. So don't tell immigration, but I've been breaking the law since I got here. It's a stupid law. And the guy that stands out in the alleyway and smokes a cigarette, that wafts through the apartment fine. But it's ridiculous. So yeah, for as far as Quebec is concerned, they do pretty much treat it like tobacco for a bunch of different regulations. And the irony, of course, is no matter how strict it is here, in a couple of years, we might all be traveling to Canada to get the newest devices and liquids.
Wow.
Who'da thunk it?
Who'da thunk it?
But
Wow.
other than that, day-to-day work at CASAA is many irons in several different fires. And I'm sure we'll get into that later.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get right into the right to be smoke-free update now. Of course, they have their legal team working on both Indiana, which is one of the reasons why they formed, I believe, was mainly the Indiana legislation, and just kind of rolled into the federal legislation with Keller and Heckman and Azim Chowdhury's team there in DC. So I'll switch over here real quick to the right monitor, and we'll do a read of this really quickly here. This is their response to Indiana. This is from May 13th. So I wanted to, just in case anyone hadn't heard about it, I'll read this information, and then we can discuss the reality of what's been happening over the past week or two in Indiana. So the Right to Be Smoke-Free Coalition, our response to Indiana, May 13, 2016. On Wednesday, April 13, 2016, the Right to Be Smoke-Free Coalition filed its response to Indiana's reply to our motions for summary judgment and permanent injunction. Our response also addressed arguments raised in an amicus brief filed in support of the law by Indiana Vapor Company and Crown Liquors. In our response, we addressed the points raised by the state and amici, and argue that they, one, failed to show that the Indiana statute only indirectly regulates e-liquid manufacturing outside of the state. We argue that, as a practical matter, the law directly regulates e-liquid manufacturing outside of Indiana in violation of the Commerce Clause of the Constitution. Two, failed to identify a rational basis under the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution and the Indiana Constitution for only regulating e-liquids manufactured for open systems while exempting closed systems. The only reason proffered, I think it should be the only reason proffered by the state, which is completely false, was that closed system e-liquids are already regulated by FDA, since most of those products are made by regulated tobacco companies. Wow. And three, failed to cite a rational basis for regulating open system e-liquid as to quote unquote tobacco product under the Indiana tobacco laws. And four, failed to cite a rational basis for only regulating retailers, i.e. vape shops, who sell e-liquid used in open systems. Indiana has until April 20th to respond. We will keep you updated. The hissing stopped, by the way. I don't know if that means we lost Alex's audio. There you go.
I put myself on mute.
Oh, nice. Okay. That's a good idea. Not when you're talking, though. So... yeah, Alex, what this is obviously a little bit older information. This is what they were doing in May. What's happened since then? And we'll all discuss what we've seen in our various news outlets and social media outlets on what's been happening over the past week or two. But can you kind of summarize for us what's been going on there?
Sure. So as far as I understand it, the motion for summary judgment was denied or dismissed or defeated. I don't exactly know the appropriate word for that, but whatever the word is, it didn't happen. So really the next step for the Right to Be Smoke-Free Coalition is to appeal. And then in the interim, there have been other discussions about, actually interpreting the law. How is this going to be enforced? And when is this going to be enforced? And I think Evan McMahon has actually done a really good job of keeping tabs on this and updating in the Hoosier Vapors page on Facebook about this. I just watched their and then there was some discussion about apparently in the law it was a bit fuzzy, at least for the ATC. Was it the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission or something, as to when they were going to start enforcing this, and that there was potentially like a 60-day sell-through provision that was in there. And the ATC had sort of made kind of a verbal acknowledgement that this sell-through provision was in there and that they wouldn't start enforcing on January 1 or July 1. But that's just, that's a handshake deal. It's kind of like, when your car is not working and then you get closer to the dealership to get it fixed and it starts working again. It's a magic fix. You can't drive away and expect that to hold. That's very much how verbal kind of promises from government agencies should be treated. And sure enough, this week, retailers experienced enforcement agents coming into their shops and saying, no, you can't sell this product, or this has to be removed, or something like that. I mean, a few different people had reported having to throw away tens of thousands of dollars worth of e-liquid. So that's that. The other thing, there's a separate lawsuit that comes from Good Cat LLC based out of Florida. And they had a different legal argument. And they argued, I believe, based on the Dormant Commerce Clause. Now, I'm not familiar with the difference between Commerce Clause and Dormant Commerce Clause, but whatever it was, it granted them a bit of an exemption. But it only applies to Good Cat. Certainly there is some information that comes out of that legal argument that can be applied, I think, to the appeal. But for now, Good Cat LLC is the only company that has any kind of exemption from some of this enforcement for, whatever period of time.
All right. So what I've been seeing happening over the last week is exactly what we don't want to see in the vaping industry, and that is shops, brick and mortars closing their doors. And for a couple of different reasons. A, because I believe in capitalism. And I believe that they should be able to stay open and continue the thing that they've worked hard to build. That's one of the definitions of living in a capitalist economy. But most importantly is when smokers are looking for some place to go to try products, smoke-free products that will allow them to live a smoke-free lifestyle, their options were just decreased exponentially. So that is terrible. What have you guys seen? Go ahead, Alex.
I was going to say it's a really, really valuable point, and to kind of clarify, it's not that Indiana is forcing shops to close down. It's important to kind of be specific.
Well, what they're doing, they're forcing them to make business decisions that aren't wise and aren't going to make their business prosper.
Right,
and therefore, as a result of their actions, shops will close down. It doesn't matter if their direct intent was to or not. The result of their actions caused it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the practical effect is that these businesses have to shut down. But the important distinction to make is that it's because they have no products to sell.
Correct.
For convenience stores or other locations that might also sell these products, they're fine. They're going to see a decline in sales. They've been seeing a decline in sales already. But those businesses are going to remain open.
Well,
the vapor shop, the independent business owner isn't going to be able to stock their shelves with stuff, at least for a long enough period of time that the mom and pop shop that's just one location, they're possibly not going to be able to weather the next 30 days or 60 days or even a week. I mean, I know the margins are pretty tight, when you're an independent business owner. So, the companies that own, a chain or whatever, they might have to shut down a couple locations. Maybe they'll survive, But it really is the practical effect is that people have to shut down.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example of a government doing that in United States history. After the Civil War, African Americans were granted the right to vote, but they came up with some legislation that said, okay, fine, it's illegal for African Americans to vote, but in order to register to vote, your grandfather had to be a registered voter. And those were called Jim Crow laws. And even though it was technically legal for African Americans to vote, no one could register to vote because none of their grandparents were registered voters. They were slaves. So when the government comes up with a law that says, okay, yeah, it's technically illegal for you to do a certain thing, but cuts off your access to do the certain thing that it became legal for you to do, that is a prohibition.
Yeah.
Jay, what do you think? What have you been seeing from Indiana?
From Indiana, I've seen pictures of shops, hanging up signs saying, we're going out of business, and call the governor to ask him why. Things like that. A lot of reactive posts on Facebook. That's essentially all I've been seeing regarding Indiana. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. We'll get to thoughts in a minute. I guess you can ponder that for a second. Nick, what about yourself? What have you been?
Yeah, I mean, same thing as everybody else. A lot of empty brick and mortar locations. Over the past couple months, I've talked about Indiana a lot in my vlog videos. I've made a lot of posts on Facebook regarding Indiana, and I still get emails from my subscribers. I mean, very recently, up until yesterday, of someone emailing me and asking, hey, do you know about this in Indiana? Or why is my vape shop in Indiana closing? There's still a lot of, even though we're in it, we're past it, we're in the thick of it now, and vape shops are actually closing. There's still, unfortunately, a lot of non-informed
Consumers.
vapors, consumers inside and outside of Indiana that are, confused as to why their favorite shop is closing.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we all, probably all the four of us definitely, and many, many other vapors who we know through social media, and this has been said before, it's nothing new, not new information, but we're involved with vaping on a daily basis, and we take it to the level of wanting to find out what's happening and joining groups and being informed. But I would say the vast majority, probably 80 to 90% of people who use vapor products to get off of combustible tobacco are doing it just for that purpose. They're getting their e-liquid, they're getting their devices, and they're getting their coils, and they're rolling on with it, and they're just living their smoke-free life. They're not active members of the vaping community. They're not members of groups on Facebook, or maybe they don't even have Facebook. I don't know. And hopefully they stumble across it on a YouTube format, something like this, because if you're a consumer and you're not paying attention to what CASAA is putting out there, that's information that you could be getting. It's free to become a member of CASAA if you're a consumer. So from that angle, there are avenues, and I know, Nick, you probably tell them check out CASAA and look at their website. They have information for you available there. But I think that's one of the areas we definitely need to focus on is consumer outreach. And I know CASAA does everything that they can do with what they're doing, with what they have to work with. But everyone in every industry organization, every state organization, every vapor who is involved, if you see somebody vaping on the street, I'll ask them, do you know what CASAA? I mean, first we start talking, what device you have. Of course, you don't want it to be a dick and be like, hey, remember CASAA? I'm like, oh, cool, you vape? What is that? And then I let them know I'm in the industry, and then I let them know that they should, if they want to become informed and not lose their rights to vape as a consumer, they should check out CASAA and stuff like that. So
I would also say that a lot of that responsibility falls on shop owners. For a lot of consumers, their only point of entry to this community is through their local shop. MASFA, Massachusetts Smoke Free, actually has a board member who doesn't even own a computer. And the only way she found out that advocacy was even a thing in this industry was through her connections from her favorite shops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, unfortunately, you just added a point of what's not going to be able to happen in Indiana from now on because the shops are closing.
Very true. Very true.
You see when it gets to the point that it's gotten to in Indiana and what could definitely happen in other states, they're chopping us off at the base. And that kind of cripples our community outreach and vapor outreach abilities because the front line is the brick and mortar shop, in my opinion, just like you just said, Jay. So anyway, does it look like there's any hope on the horizon, Alex, with Indiana?
It.
I mean, there's always
depends
hope, but I
on-
mean, what's going on to what are we doing? I'm positive we're not just laying down and taking it. And I have some information, but I'd like to hear from you. So,
Yeah, it's not. Then I don't think anybody's laying down and taking it. It's the process getting this through the courts is slow, so it might appear like that for a little bit, but that's just because things take time.
right.
And like I said, there will be an appeal, and then there's also, I believe, and I don't want to. I just there is the potential that the FDA deeming regulations preempt the Indiana law, or at least some parts of it. So that may be something that factors into the legal solution. I would actually have to go back and watch Evan's post on that. He did something last week talking about the preemption. So that may factor into it.
Well,
Also,
first and foremost, they have to be effective first, and they're not effective yet. So even if these laws in Indiana are instituted for a short period, they may be preempted by the FDA regulations once they become effective. But here's the catch to that, and this is why I think Indiana did what they did. In a month or 6 weeks or 2 months, how many shops have been able to sustain, and how many will be able to come back from that 1, 2, 3 months because like you said, the margins are tight. Cash flow is always tight in brick and mortar shops. I can attest to that firsthand. Who will be around to come back?
Is that, would you direct that question at?
Anyone who wants to answer. I mean, I think that's the point of it. I mean, sure, it might be preempted, but to what end?
Well, and even the threats to barriers of entry into the industry are in fact barriers of entry into the industry, and we're already seeing that with the FDA deeming regs. People at this point are more reluctant to open new shops, just in the shadow of what the FDA is looking to do. So couple that with what's going on in Indiana, I can definitely see that you're going to see a lot less economic activity in our sector in that state, regardless of the outcome of what happens in Indiana.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Alex.
oh no, you actually kind of broke up on me. But no, I mean that's a valid point. That's a great point, and that's we touched on that actually earlier with how does the one shop that sole independent business owner survive 2 months without being able to sell product? It's exceedingly difficult. And it's and you bring up the impact of the FDA. I am actually kind of surprised. We get calls every now and then from business owners looking for what is arguably advice that should be coming from a trade association.
Right.
But I get people calling and saying, I'm about ready to open my shop. And I think, you're 60 days away from the effective date here. Did you know? And so it's kind of everywhere. But the other thing that I was going to say, and this is probably shifting gears very abruptly, the effect of all of this is that the media is sort of finally paying attention to what's going on in Indiana. And over the past, I think, week and a half or so, there have been several very scathing articles written about the law, and it's held politicians' feet to the fire over this. And at least one or two of them have stated in print that they will be revisiting this law in 2017, which is great for the businesses that survive.
Correct.
But it's still it's what.
It's funny how the
5
media
months
works.
away.
When I saw media attention for the Indiana legislation when it was being argued, it seemed pro the legislation, that things are going the right way, and Indiana is taking a tough stance on children becoming addicted to nicotine and stuff like that. So the media are media whores. They're only in it for what attention they can get. And now that there's some backlash from the community in Indiana, of course they're going to jump on the bandwagon of the people who are being affected by it and the shops that are closing down. Why in the hell didn't they say this shit 6 months ago? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Vacant storefronts are gonna. That's a shocking image.
Yeah, but they don't like it until it's a shocking image. They don't like the thought of a shocking image. They like the actual shocking image because that's what gets them ratings and that's what gets them paper sold. And yeah.
To add to the kind of our issue with reaching people and so I've been dialed into I started vaping in 2013, and within 2 weeks I was aware that this was going to be a problem. And thanks to watching Grim Green videos, I found CASAA, so it was easy for me to figure that out. But so we've got about 185,000 people that we consider to be members, and out of 4 million vapors. So,
Yeah.
is that even 1% of people that vape, exclusively? And the rest of us, it's again, just like what happens with the media, the rest of the vaping world, the rest of the vaping consumers, they're not going to find out until they go to their regular retail location, be it a gas station or a vapor shop, and there's a sign on the door that says we're closed because the FDA shut us down.
Right.
That's just, nobody's, you can put a sign on the door and light the building on fire, and people are still going to try to open the door. That's just kind of the way people work.
Right. This program does not encourage anyone to light buildings on fire.
Yeah, definitely not.
I'm not advocating.
Metaphorically, he was speaking. All right. So, Indiana, we'll revisit it, of course, in the future and see what's happening, any progress that's being made with the fight in Indiana to, God bless all of you who are doing the work there to keep vaping around. We appreciate it, even if we're not in Indiana. I'm from Florida, but I can tell you that I know states like to piggyback off of other states. And yeah. So, and again, I just want to reiterate this fact too. If you do not have an association, a trade association in your state, a smoke-free association, get one. Get one before it gets to this point. I think that's an important thing, a point to make right now. So if you're watching from another state and you don't have one, do it. Just the formation and having something before legislatures meet and discuss what they're going to talk about in the next session, just the formation and having a lobbyist representing you in the state dissuades them from doing some crazy shit. So anyway.
To piggyback on that a bit, and also to touch on what we talked about how things might look like they're not moving along. And I know that you guys have experienced this in Florida, and I know that Tennessee has seen it, and I'm fairly confident Georgia, and other states. When you have that trade association in place, and you have your lobbying team, and they're able to connect you with lawmakers, you guys are putting the issue in front of them before it becomes a problem.
Correct.
Which is
part of the strategy.
Huge, absolutely huge. This is what all the other groups do. There's this question, like I think Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids is taking a bunch of children to DC next week or something like that. And everybody's sort of like, oh, what are they going to be advocating for? The FDA has already done. Well, no. There are other things, and that organization is making their presence known to lawmakers, and they do this at least once a year, probably more. And so, even if it's not an issue in your state now, when that issue comes across a lawmaker's desk, they have a better idea of who to reach out to and get a balanced perspective on whatever regulations are coming. And all of that stuff kind of happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, let me add to that just really quickly here. As unhappy as we were as vapors in the industry about the FDA deeming regulations, there are people on the other side of the fence that were equally unhappy because we thought they went too far. They thought they didn't go far enough. So bet your sweet ass they are working just as hard as we're working. They want it to be even more strict. They want nicotine delivery. They want nicotine out of the choice of adults in the United States of America altogether.
That's the tragedy of compromise in politics.
Yeah, but I don't think that people understand that.
Right.
They think, oh wow, the people who are the FDA deeming regulations, vapors are thinking this is terrible for our industry, and but there are also on the other side of the fence people who want to go even further. They want us gone.
Yeah,
They don't want an industry at all.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. They're paid to have that opinion.
correct.
If
And then they bring in children to enforce at this campaign for tobacco-free kids that they're having next week in DC. Yeah, I'm thinking about. I mean, it would be. I don't think it would be terrible for us to have people vapors with children, and maybe we can produce something, or maybe we can plan a lobby or a rally or something, and say, our children are as happy as those children are to have the FDA deeming regulations. They want to go further. Our children are happy that we're not smoking anymore. What's wrong with that?
Well,
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
There's science to back up that argument, and it's one of the leading indications that one of the leading contributing factors of a child picking up cigarettes is whether or not their parents smoke.
Right.
So, if you want to take care of that, let's talk
I'll
about
say this.
mom and dad vaping.
As a smoker, I did not smoke in the house once I had children. Never again did I smoke in the house, and but I would smoke in the car with the window cracked.
you're a horrible, horrible man.
I'm going to admit that publicly, and I'm sure
No, I
millions
did
of other
too.
smokers do too. My dad, when I was a kid, I never thought I would be a smoker. Never. I hated it. He smoked anywhere he wanted to, in the house, door shut, in the car. He might crack the window a half of an inch.
Yeah,
we were
my mother
exposed
was
to
the same
cigarette
way.
smoke from my entire childhood, and
My mother was the same way. And you know what? As kids, we never wore bicycle helmets, and somehow the species survived.
Yeah, but I ended up becoming a smoker, and then the point of that is we don't want our children to have a negative association with smoke-free products, so that when they get to the age of curiosity, which every teenager will, they might choose to try a less harmful alternative. Is all I'm saying. And the fact that they parade children around and say, smoking any electronic cigarettes and any nicotine delivery at all is bad for you and should be eliminated. Why can't we do the same thing with our children? Because I know that for a fact that my children are happy that I don't smoke anymore. And it's a good thing. And I just think that we should say the same thing that they're saying from an opposite perspective.
I think it's a good idea. When is this event happening? It's next week, isn't it?
Yeah, it's next week. The Campaign for
so-
Tobacco-Free Kids is a very well-financed and organized entity.
Right.
So-
So yeah, I guess the problem is that obviously we can't match that time frame if a national organization wants to step up and organize something like that. But certainly down the road, that could be something that maybe should be looked at.
Yeah, absolutely.
That doesn't. I hate the idea of them parading kids around. That just bothers me so badly.
It does. It
Like,
does.
that just sticks in my craw. I hate that. Why does that bother me so much? I get what they're trying to do. No, maybe I don't get what they're trying to do. It just upsets me.
They did the same thing in Boston. They literally bust in high school and junior high kids to a hearing. I think that might have been, what was that regarding? I forget exactly what it was regarding, but it was vaping legislation. And you should have heard the words coming out of these kids' mouths speaking at this hearing. Vaping damages your livers. Plural. The other thing was vaping helps you absorb alcohol, and it won't come up on a breathalyzer. Just all sorts of
Wow.
stuff.
That's awesome.
So maybe it will be a blessing in disguise.
That could be. But, I mean, really, these kids, if they're speaking, they're not thinking for themselves. They're just regurgitating what they've
Right.
been told.
Exactly.
They've been told, and so
Kids-
apparently their teachers think that human beings have more than one liver.
Yeah.
Well, and apparently also too, their parents aren't objecting to them going on these because they wouldn't go without parental consent. So,
Well, they're probably getting school credit for it.
Yeah.
well,
Wow.
It's the one ad that I saw for it was it's some sort of leadership program, which is even more just messed up. But
Well,
yeah,
all
you
that
know,
means is in
it's
10 to 20 years, these children who are getting a negative association with even vaping devices or smoke-free alternatives will most likely be in leadership positions. So we need to do a better job of reaching out to these kids at an early age, so that when I mean, if they're taking an interest in joining rallies and speaking in front of, I was that kid when I was in high school for sure. And it did definitely shape my political and personal thoughts on freedom in society. So, we can joke about it right now, but in 10 to 20 years, we won't be laughing about it when these kids are in leadership or elected offices, and they're going to remember that trip to Boston, that trip to DC. So anyway,
That's crazy.
let's go over really quickly here. We're about 35 minutes in, and we got a little bit more to cover. The right to be smoke-free federal lawsuit. Alex, do you have any information on that? I know that CASAA is part of the coalition that joined the lawsuit. We were going to have Rob from Cosmic Fog on today, but he couldn't make it to give us kind of some update on it. But maybe you might can tell us. I haven't heard anything over the last week or so of any movement on it, but maybe you have.
So yeah, I'm a little bit limited in what I can say, but I
Sure.
think the stuff that's kind of out there is that so the right to be smoke free and Nicopure Labs, two separate lawsuits have been combined into one, and this is in the DC Circuit Court, I believe. Forgive me if I talk about this incorrectly. I am not a lawyer, but. And this is happening on an accelerated timetable. This was at Nicopure's request, just to get this done quickly. So there are some sort of very quick deadlines coming up. We are participating in this by filing an amicus brief. Obviously, consumers can provide information that industry cannot. We're not making any new legal arguments or different legal arguments here. We are simply supporting what the cases have made already. But this is, a very valuable thing that we can do. And I don't know if I have the dates all written down. But I can tell you that, in what we're looking at here is that this will be done probably the latter half of October.
Okay.
So this is going to move very quickly.
So there will be some decision made on the joined lawsuits by October, something most likely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess as these things go, that means we'll find out whether or not we're going to appeal or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So for what would you, I've seen a lot lately, especially being an event organizer. We talk to a lot of companies across the United States. A lot of reluctancy to go forward with business as usual. What would you? I know you're not an industry organization, but as a person, as Alex Clark, not CASAA, what are your thoughts on that?
On
businesses who are
people
taking their foot off the gas pedal and kind of pushing the brake through the floor and saying, we're going to basically just stop growth. We're extremely hesitant to do anything new. We're extremely hesitant to continue to go to events, stuff like that. I'll tell you my thought process, which you're probably already aware of. But my thought is, you should be as big as possible in the next 2 years. Nothing substantial is going to change in the next 2 years for businesses. By 2018 for sure. If we haven't changed the predicate date, if we don't have federal legislation that changes the way vapor products are viewed in the eyes of the law federally, sure, there's going to be some issues in 2018. But until that point, my personal opinion is grow as big as possible, because it's going to be even harder for them to put us out of business.
To some extent, I have to echo your sentiment there. From an advocacy perspective, we need more people. The drive to grow the numbers of people who are aware of this issue, that has not stopped. It has become more important now than it ever was. However people feel comfortable achieving that is great. I do have to acknowledge, the practical consideration here of, I understand that there's a lot of panic out there. And again, we're back to the small business owner that owns one shop.
Right.
What are their financial considerations? And they've got to feed their families. They've got to take care of their lives, and you have to do what you have to do. And I don't think anybody should feel guilty or pressured for making that decision to preserve their financial future.
I'm seeing it from way more though than just small independent stores. I'm seeing it from medium to large manufacturers as well.
Well, if I can chime in,
Sure.
While I agree that at the small mom and pop, kind of sect, I can, I'm not paying their mortgage. So, if they feel like they need to pursue another avenue, who am I to tell them they shouldn't? But at the same time, the fact that some organizations, small, medium businesses, are looking to get out of the market, that could create opportunities for others to step in and kind of get their shit together and start growing. So, this could be seen as an opportunity short term over the next 2 years for certain e-liquid manufacturers, device manufacturers to really kind of step up their game, marketing wise, industry wise, advocacy wise. I think we're going to see a little bit of both. We're going to struggle to find some balance over the next few months, but I think you're going to see a bit of consolidation in the industry, kind of organically centered around the pending enforcement of the existing regulations. But there is opportunity there. So if you're not already active, get active. Just find out what's going on and find your niche. You might be able to really expand your business with relative ease in the current scenario.
Well, I think my point behind that was if you were planning to expand and growing and marketing prior to May 5th, 2016, I don't think that strategy should change, certainly in the next year and a half, 2 years. Mm-hmm. So, Nick, you're at 1 frame per second right now, and you're a little bit blurry, but what do you think?
I don't know. The internet speeds down here in Southern California are just
stupid
just
Jerry Brown. I bet Jerry Brown did it. He probably is limiting your internet connection right now.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for nothing, Jerry Brown. Unbelievable. But yeah, I've always agreed with you on this, Kevin. I think we need to grow and expand and get more smokers to become vapors, and in doing that, make them aware of what's going on. I think, the old saying, there's power in numbers, exists for a reason, because there is power in numbers. And the more smokers we can get, the more numbers we have, the more educated vapors we can have as well, which is why, I'm doing YouTube videos and doing vlogs, and that's not ever going to stop. And I'm trying to educate as many people as I can. So yeah, I
feel the same way about events. I'm not planning to stop them. They get smaller, as I've said, for the time being. Hopefully, they're not smaller attendance wise from consumers and smokers, but they may be smaller from the exhibitor side. While people, I think probably after the August 8th deadline comes and goes, and people realize the world still spins, and the 4 million vapors that are already vaping still need products, and the 40 million that smokers that are smoking still need to be introduced to vaping. I think once they get past that date, for some reason, maybe that's a magic number. Yep. Maybe we'll see some reversal in attitudes and opinions. There are still some companies, obviously, who are going pedal to the metal, and I applaud them for that. But anyway, the last main topic we had to kind of cover really quickly here, and I thought this was, I received a notification because I'm signed up on the House.gov or Congress.gov's website for notifications to changes to HR2058. And I got one through this morning that there were, looks like 3 more co-sponsors added for HR2058, 2 Republicans and 1 more Democrat. So that makes 2 Democrats. Representative Brad Ashford, he's a Democrat from Nebraska. He is now on board as a co-sponsor of HR2058. So again, we'll reiterate that while probably this legislation doesn't have a chance of passing, it still should be something that we're supporting, because the more bipartisan support that we get for HR2058, the better chance we have for legislative strategy somewhere down the line, hopefully over the next couple of years before 2018 hits. And we definitely need to make changes to the FDA deeming regulations or eliminate them through federal legislation or litigation. So very happy to see that puts us up to looks like 66 Republican co-presenter sponsors and 2 Democrat co-sponsors for HR 2058. So, and while I say this every time, I'll switch over here to screen to the other screen so people can see. We had Cynthia Loomis. I'm not sure how to say that. She's a Republican from Wyoming. And Thomas MacArthur, a Republican from New Jersey. I didn't even know that was a thing, but I guess there are Republicans in New Jersey.
We've got a Republican governor.
Kind of.
Well, kind of, yeah.
Anybody heard of Chris Christie? Yeah, kind of.
And then Brad Ashford, Representative Democrat from Nebraska. So shoot those guys thank yous. No matter where you're at in the United States, we need to encourage them and let them know that people from all over the place are paying attention to their decision to become leaders on this issue, and especially the 2 Democrats who are on there. We definitely need to send them thank yous. Colin Peterson, Democrat Minnesota, Brad Ashford, Democrat Nebraska. I'll show you Representative Ashford's page real quick here. So you can't see the top of it, but it's ashford.house.gov. They have contact information. You can just send them a thank you and say, you know, I vape. I used smoke-free products to get me off of combustible tobacco, and I appreciate you taking a leadership role and becoming a co-sponsor of HR 2058, and we look forward to hopefully your support at some point in the future as well. So just something quick like that. I don't really see a press release on it on here, but the fact is he is a co-sponsor now, so that's an awesome thing, and we definitely want to. We have a tendency as human beings to only focus on the negativities, but when something positive happens, we need to recognize that as well. So if you're watching this, take a minute, say thank you. It goes a long way, I promise you.
Yeah, absolutely, it does.
Yeah, and for people living in those districts, for all 68 co-sponsors, CASAA has an engagement where you can send a pre-written, fully editable letter to your congressperson and say thank you. And for people living outside of those districts, depending on the state and how they run things in their office, sometimes they will not actually accept email from people living outside. But there is a physical mailing address on their website. So by all means, send them a handwritten or typed letter. That carries quite a bit of weight and is a great thing to do.
Let me jump over to that on the CASAA page real quick here. Actually, this is the CASAA website.
It is.
How can I make this larger? There we go. Oh, come on.
It's kind of difficult to find.
Look at that picture. That's a pretty cool picture you have there, though.
Hey, yeah. I think that was taken at some sort of event.
Yeah. It looks vaguely familiar. I want to say VCC Tulsa, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, we had a really cool group shot with the iVape I Vote, so I thought it was a pretty powerful image. Glad to see that you guys were using that on the website there. But which of these, so if someone goes to CASAA.org, where would they go to find that? Do you know? Off the top of your head? Not to put you on the spot, Legislative Director Clark.
No. All I can tell you is that we've been working on our website for a while now.
Is it under calls to action, maybe?
Yeah, go to calls to action.
Okay.
FDA regulations, it's over on the right-hand side.
FDA
Any
alerts and
FDA
calls to action.
stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then,
That would be the newsletter. I don't think I mentioned it in there. Man, I'm just
no
gonna,
more casualties,
I'm gonna
misinformation, testimonials, register to vote, legislative update, national, blah, blah, blah. Let's see what else we have. California.
I don't think I put it in there.
Okay, well, check the, I'm sure Alex will post a link to where you can contact your representative or the representatives who are now co-sponsors of HR 2058. And
I will say it's one of the reasons why it's a little bit difficult to find is that it's one of those things where our system limits people to connecting with their lawmakers. So in order to kind of head off a lot of the kind of complaints of, I tried to use your system and it didn't work, we really send, emails out to people that are in those districts, and it is a little bit hidden. It is actually on the HR 2058 call to action. It's down a little bit. It says send a thank you letter, but I'm going to drop this link in our Skype chat so that you can share it with people.
Sure. Yeah, we'll put it in the down there area, and we'll make sure that we post the link up. And also, if you do happen to be on Facebook, you can check out the We Are CASAA. Just search for We Are CASAA Facebook page. There's a lot of good information and posts that gets made there daily, minutely, probably. So cool, very cool. Nick or Jay, you have anything to add? I mean, cool to see another Democrat coming on board for HR2058. I have not heard of any movement on Cole Bishop, by the way. I don't think Speaker Ryan's office or Speaker Ryan himself has called for a floor vote for the agricultural appropriations bill yet. Alex, anything update on that? I haven't heard anything this past week or so.
The last that we discussed it, I'm trying to remember who I spoke. Oh, I did some in-district meetings in Pennsylvania. Was that last week? All the days are running together. And one of the chiefs of staff had mentioned they checked with their legislative director in DC, and from the way that things sound is that this will end up as part of an omnibus budget bill. And we will all be huddled around Twitter probably in December or even January.
Wow.
Waiting to see what bits of language survive the cuts.
So it could be that long. I mean, the grandfather date could technically come and then be rescinded depending on what happens with this language.
Well, yeah, I mean, the effective date of August 8th is happening no matter what. That's
So you don't think we'll see
nothing is going to happen.
a vote on this or anything before August 8th? I guess I've never really thought about how that's going to affect things before. What if the grandfather date is effective? Again, is it going to be the same situation as we discussed earlier with Indiana? Who can hold on that long? I mean, are people going to... Well, I mean, so basically there would be no new products coming on the market between August 8th and when and if this language is passed, correct?
Right. Yeah. So no matter what happens, the August 8th that's kind of the drop dead date for new products being introduced without a PMTA.
But it could be temporary.
If legislative and legal solutions work their magic, then yeah, it could change things.
So basically, if you're working on something and you don't get it to market by then, don't give up hope. I mean, keep it in your back pocket and keep developing.
Keep it on file. We might win this down the line. But again, changing, even with Cole Bishop or HR2058, August 8th is the new predicate date. That's the cutoff date. So even if you don't get something on the market by August 8th, I redouble your efforts.
No matter what, you still can't introduce anything new to the market unless it's
Correct.
through PMTA.
Right.
Right.
So,
but
yeah, August 8th is still, the predicate date change is still just a Band-Aid. And I know
Right.
Demetrius has said this, ad nauseum over the last few months. That August 8th date is set in stone. It is going to be a cutoff of some sort, whether or not Cole Bishop or
Right.
HR 2058 passes.
Right. But to reiterate, August 8th is not the deadline for this legislation to
Correct.
do its thing.
That's what I
Correct.
meant. I meant
Okay.
you're gonna have some time even after that, possibly up to 2 years. But you need to have the
Yeah.
PMTA or the SE process started during that time, unless we get
Yeah.
federal legislation. There's a lot of what ifs right at this point, basically.
Yeah, the 2 year kind of grace period, if you will, that's written into the regulations. They're not going to start enforcement until August 8th, 2018. And so that's what the FDA has written, and you can hold them to that. But it is very important to point this out because we do get questions. I'm sure you guys probably get some questions. Is what happens if this bill doesn't pass by August 8th?
Right. That was my point of
it's-
asking, because people are going to want to know that.
Yeah, it's nothing really. I mean,
Right.
it is something, but it's just no new products are going to come on the market after August 8th. Everything that's on the market can stay on the market for 2 years, which goes back to that point of, retailers are still going to have products that they can sell. It's just not going to be new and exciting and flashy
Well,
stuff.
I think the main takeaway from this and getting the predicate date changed is that people who have ideas for new products, they're still going to have to go through the SE or PMTA process, but it's going to give them something much more relevant to compare it to when they're going through that process.
Absolutely.
Right, and I would kind of warn. I understand, standard equivalent, substantial equivalency is a
It's a subjective thing that whoever's reviewing the application, whichever employee of the FDA is reviewing that application is going to determine. It's not I don't think that there's an objective approach to it. It's going to be whether or not they think the argument made by the manufacturer indicates that there are substantial equivalents. The February 2007 date it screws everybody. At least the August 8th, 2016 date, if it's changed to that date, will give us 9 years of innovation to compare products to. And I think that is the big takeaway from having the predicate date changed.
Yeah. It is a potential pathway. It is certainly possibly less costly than the pre-market application, but it's still essentially it has the same chilling effect on innovation. It, even just kind of slapping a different label on a product, you have to go through substantial equivalency.
Right.
So, yeah, just want to make sure that's clear.
Cool. Nick, any thoughts? Jay? I know I said that earlier and I kept right on talking. Sorry about that.
You did.
My thoughts on you keeping talking.
No, on anything we've discussed with the HR2058 or anything. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
I would just say, don't get too discouraged. I mean, there are going to be a lot of changes over the next month. There are going to be a lot of changes in how the industry acts, behaves. But this isn't a reason to just close up shop. This isn't a reason to stop being part of the community. Things are going to get a little bit harder. We expected this. We've known about this for years. Keep doing what you can.
Well, I think if you see the quote at the top, I try to change it to something relevant every week. And by the way, we are at 1 month. Today is July 8th, so we are at 1 month countdown right now. But Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope." And I think that is extremely relevant for the vaping industry at this juncture of our time in history. We do have a lot of finite disappointments daily, weekly, monthly. But that doesn't mean we need to lose hope. So, Nick, any wrap-up thoughts?
No, not really. I mean, I don't have any wrap-up thoughts. You don't have to do everything, but you do have to do something, as Kevin always says. I've stolen that, and I think it's a great thing to say. You don't have to do everything, but you do have to do something. And, there's little things coming up, like I saw in the newest CASAA email that I got about the caps. You have to have certified caps on your bottles with actual paperwork certificates that these caps are certified. And there's a multitude of juice vendors that either don't know that this is going on and don't have CRC certified caps. I just saw a juice line just the other day on Instagram that just launched that's using the Chubby Gorilla bottles, and those bottles are great, but they're not certified. There's no certification paperwork with those bottles, and so that's something that's happening soon as well. So
yeah, we mentioned that a couple episodes ago. Yeah,
you have to keep your eye. You have to be diligent in getting your correct information. You have to be diligent about it.
Yeah, so I think that's July 26th, right, Alex? Is that when that's
correct?
Okay, so this has nothing to do with the FDA deeming regulations. This is actually the first and only electronic cigarette legislation at the U.S. federal level so far, and that was on these cap compliance. So that actually goes into effect July 26th. So you have about 18 days, roughly, if you are an e-liquid manufacturer in the United States, or I think a retailer. Make sure that the products that you're getting and you get a certificate from the manufacturer are compliant with this new legislation that's becoming effective July 26th.
Right.
Don't be caught unaware.
There have been visits paid to vapor shops already.
By who? Who's doing that so that people can know?
Your local health and human services people, departments of health. That's basically how, and the Consumer Product Safety Commission. they're coordinating with local departments of health to conduct these compliance checks.
Right.
And yes, and several locations have already been visited by officers with this, with whatever agency, and they've said, "Hi, how you doing? We'll be back on July 26th. Make sure you have your paperwork in order."
Absolutely.
And yes, they are doing enforcement at the retail level. So if you expect your supplier or manufacturer to be visited and everything's just sort of automatically going to be taken care of, that's not how this works. The compliance officer walks into your store and says, "Nice bottles. I need to see your," I believe it's a GCC, General Compliance Certificate, from the manufacturer that these are in fact
Compliant with
child-resistant caps that are compliant with the Code of Federal Regulations.
Right. So if that does not happen and they walk into your shop on July 27th and they see that you are selling products that are not compliant, what's the repercussions of that for the shop owner?
Preface this by saying not legal advice, but typically these things come with some sort of a warning, and you have maybe 30 days or less to get everything in order, and then after that they start with the fines, or
Does it mean that they can
force-
confiscate
force
your
those out.
e-liquids? So if you have, say, $30,000 of e-liquid sitting on your shelves and it's not compliant bottles, they're going to say, "This is now ours"?
I think maybe some decent advice is to operate like that's what's going to happen.
Right.
Get this done now.
All right. Well, I had a rant that I was going to read, but I think I'm just going to post it. I'll scroll through it here real quickly here if you want to pause and in the replay, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to this on the replay for the podcast on Smoke Free Radio, which, by the way, Jay, we have a couple of episodes we need to get over there, including this one. But I'll scroll down a little bit. You can read and pause and read and pause. So this was an article that I had written for Vapin Magazine's issue, but it did not get included in this latest issue, and I think it's going to be too late by the next one to be published. So I'll have to come up with a new article for the next issue of Vapin Magazine. But anyway, I'll post also a link to the text. I'll maybe post this on my Facebook in just a few minutes and make it public if anyone wants to share it. It's just it was pretty scathing. I wrote it about a month and a half ago, and I was in a foul mood. So it's scathing but truthful, and that's sometimes how I am.
It is that.
That is, if you read our disclaimer, it says we're not going to sugarcoat the facts, and this is not sugarcoating anything. So anyway, great show today, guys. We'll be back next week, Friday at noon. Alex, we'd love to have you back on at some point in the future. I thought you did a great job filling us in on what's going on. If you're interested in ever coming back on, just let us know, or if hopefully next time I'll give you more than a 30-minute notice. But we appreciate you taking the time to come on with us today and kind of give us some insight as to what's going on with the Right to Be Smoke-Free lawsuit in Indiana and other tangents we got off on today. Jay, good to have you back. Any comments in the chat, by the way, before we go? I haven't been keeping track of it.
I've been addressing some questions just in the chat, but nothing crazy going on in chat today. Good conversation, though.
Good. Very good. That's what we want to do with this program. We want to start good conversations, and we want to have factual information out there for people to discuss instead of fantasies. So we appreciate you all coming, joining us, watching live. Check it out next week, Fridays at noon. You can visit us on the Facebook page, VCCLive. If you search for that, you'll find it. As always, you don't have to do everything, but you do have to do something. Get involved.
Right.